Hey, it's NPR's Book of the Day. I'm Andrew Limbong. Probably the most important ingredient in any recipe is time. I'm not talking about how long it takes to make something, but that as time passes and food traditions get passed down, recipes change. Sometimes they get tweaked here and there with each generation, adding just a slight signature touch, and sometimes people take big swings with the changes they make. In a bit, we'll hear about a cookbook author who takes a very classic approach to matzo ball soup. But first, the big swings. Podcaster Dan Pashman went viral for inventing a brand new pasta shape, putting in tons of research and development to find a shape that maximizes forkability and sauce clingage. He took that approach and wrote a whole cookbook that expands what we think is possible when it comes to combining pasta with sauce. It's called Anything's Pastable, and he spoke with Here and Now's Robin Young about why experimenting with food shouldn't just be the realm of professional cooks.
This message comes from BetterHelp. It's back to school time, and even if you haven't been to school in a while, you can still learn a thing or two, particularly about yourself. Therapy can help you do just that by helping you discover your strengths, set boundaries, and adopt new coping skills. And BetterHelp Online Therapy is convenient, flexible, and built around your schedule. Visit betterhelp.com/NPR to save 10% on your first month. That's betterhelp.com/NPR.
Our next story tells the tale of a lowly intern who worked with a radio icon. No, let's make that worshipped at the feet of a radio icon, and went on to become a James Beard and Webby Award-winning podcaster who now has a new book. Hey, wait, I'm not in the book. Dan Pashman is the creator and host of the wildly successful podcast, The Sporkful. And as his fans know, he also created his own kind of corkscrew pasta. In 2021, his cascatelli went viral. It was on the cover of Time magazine. Intern Dan, are you kidding me?
That's right.
And Dan Pashman joins us in the studio. Welcome.
It's great to see you, Robin. I mean, I was your intern. That was my first real gig in radio. It was with you right here in Boston, so I'm so excited to be with you.
Well, I'm claiming you. and not only a James Beard Award winner, two-time James Beard Award winner. How did this happen? Because I remember you liking donuts and bagels. And where did it go to food?
Well, I liked food. I obviously had an interest in radio from the time I graduated college. Was interning with you for about a decade. I was working in news radio, news, politics, news coverage. Long story short, it was a tumultuous time in the world of radio. I got laid off from about 6 jobs in 8 years. Friends of mine were starting podcasts. I knew that was the future, and I figured if I own my own podcast, at least no one can lay me off but me.
Right.
And I figured, well, I have a lot of opinions about food. I think I have a quirky, idiosyncratic approach to food. I'm not a chef, but I love to eat. Why don't I try a podcast with the motto, it's not for foodies, it's for eaters.
Yes, and the forward to your new book, Anything's Pastable, is from chef and food writer J. Kenji Lopez-Alt. I mean, you're respected by real people in food. How would you characterize how you approach food?
I'm obsessive about the details of food and about the eating experience. I'm sort of a very analytical person.
Let's just, for listeners saying, well, what's detailed? You insist that we eat a slice, and this is what Kenji reminds us, we eat our slice of wonderful oil-soaked New York pizza folded with the inside out.
If you fold your pizza inside out, it puts the cheese landing and the sauce landing directly on your tongue. It puts the crust in the center, and it's a very different experience. And it's fun, it's silly, I like it sometimes, but more than anything, it teaches you that you don't need to be a chef to have fun eating. And I'm the kind of person who has always been playing with my food.
Another one is put the slice of cheese on the bottom of the burger.
Right, cheeseburger. Put the cheese on the bottom because it brings the cheese closer to your tongue to accentuate cheesy goodness. It also creates a seal to prevent the bottom bun from turning soggy.
No, to prevent soggage.
Yes, right. Thank you for using the technical term, Robin. I didn't want to lose you with this high-level mumbo-jumbo. But look, I missed whole exits on the freeway just because I was thinking about the best way to dip a tortilla chip without having a break-off in the guacamole. So, yes. And somehow I managed to turn this into a career.
I know. And the cover of Time magazine.
Yes, that's right.
I'm stuck on that. But for instance, this people have heard about the pasta that you invented, and this was your whole family was tortured with this for years. To me, and we'll have pictures at the website, to me, it looks like a corkscrew with like a little flat end. And as you say, it's the best elements of two of your favorite shapes, Mafaldi and bucatini, neither of which I knew. can you synopsize it? You've talked about this before, but so what is it about what you invented? And it is now being sold.
So I have these 3 metrics that I use to judge all pasta shapes. So there's forkability, how easy is it to get it on the fork and keep it there. Sauceability, how well does sauce adhere to the shape. And tooth sinkability, which is how satisfying is it to sink your teeth into it. And a lot of pasta shapes are pretty good at 1 or 2 of those. Very few nail all 3. Spaghetti barely gets 1. All right. Try to get a good bite of spaghetti on your fork, Robin. You can't.
Yeah.
It's either going to be too big or too small. You're going to have danglers wiping sauce all over your face.
Okay.
And then when you're done with the spaghetti, half the sauce is still on the plate. Right? That's a design flaw.
Yes.
And so
By God.
So cascatelli is a short shape. It has 1 sort of flat component, and then it has 2 parallel ruffles sticking up perpendicular to the flat portion. And those 2 parallel ruffles have a sort of a canyon between them that I call the sauce trough. When sauce goes inside between those 2 ruffles, it's like those ruffles act as teeth. They chomp onto that sauce and they will not let it go. And that was just from my research. I fell in love with mafalda. It's a shape that's like fettuccine, long flat noodle, but with ruffles down the edges. You could also think of it like a narrow lasagna.
Yes.
And I just love the ruffles. And I hit upon that and I said, not enough pasta shapes have ruffles. Ruffles hold sauce phenomenally. They hold little bits and pieces better than tubes do. And they create kind of a fun, playful texture in your mouth that just makes the eating experience more dynamic. So I said, my shape must have ruffles. And that was kind of the first inspiration.
And then it's not, I mean, you when you talk about taking deep dives, you have an entree for some reason. You must tell them you were my intern. Yeah. Because you speak with some of the best pasta designers, who knew, to nail down some of your ideas. So who are some of the people you spoke with?
Well, so first I had to get a pasta die made. The die is like the mold. Turns out there's only one guy left in America today who's still making pasta dies. His name is Giovanni. He lives in Draycott, Massachusetts. And he's making dies for like Kraft mac and cheese and Campbell's noodle soup. So he didn't have a whole lot of time for a podcaster with a dream. But I bugged and harassed him, as I did when tracking down guests for you as your intern, Robin. I bugged and harassed him until he relented and agreed to meet with me, and he helped me design it. I had to find a company to produce it for me, and I was able to team up with a company called Sfolini in upstate New York. It's spelled Sfoglini, to manufacture it. But along the way, I got a lot of doors slammed in my face. A lot of people in the pasta business who said, this is a terrible idea. My wife was far from convinced that the world needed another pasta shape. But I had told people that I was going to do it, so I kind of felt like I had to follow through on it.
Yeah, well, and you did, and to great success. And now your wife and children are like, yes, we made.
That's right. Now I go to like food events, and they're hanging out at the table with me, passing out samples of the pasta.
What you're seeing, and that's what brings us to the cookbook. You're seeing what people are doing with your pasta. Sometimes people killing themselves to make the tomato sauce. You have an opinion on that, or meat sauce, or mac and cheese. Nothing wrong with that. But the book, Anything's Pastable, is about what? About other choices for what to do with shells.
Yeah, I mean, everyone was sending me pictures of what they were making with cascatelli, and it was the same old standbys. And it just made me realize how narrow the realm of pasta sauces is for most Americans. And I realized that even I myself could sometimes fall into that red sauce rut.
Yeah.
So I decided to write an entire cookbook of non-traditional, new and different pasta sauces. There's no recipe in this cookbook for marinara sauce. There's no classic bolognese or lasagna. I'm not against those. I like them. I just don't think the world needs another recipe for those. So instead, we're doing everything from a cacio e pepe with chili crisp, a cavatelli with roasted artichokes and preserved lemon. There's a scallion oil bucatini. This one my family loves. It's a scallion oil bucatini with a fried egg on top. You break the yolk and it runs down into the sauce of lemon and soy sauce and butter. And it's creamy and tangy. And it's got a couple different kinds of scallions in it, just so delicious. And there's just so much. I mean, pasta, it has that carby, starchy, comfort food vibe that we all know and love, but it has a mild flavor, which in many ways makes it a blank canvas.
As you said, you don't have the recipe for tomato sauce, but you have what's sort of a flow chart?
Yeah, so look, I don't know why anyone would make tomato sauce from scratch in today's day and age, because there are now so many great high-quality jarred tomato sauces out there. I have some instructions in the book for how to pick out high-quality pasta and high-quality sauce in the store. And once you buy your high-quality jar of sauce, I say follow my jarred tomato sauce decision tree. You want your jar of sauce to be heartier, crunchier, crispier, spicier, more savory. Answer the questions, follow the flow chart, and you'll end up with about 15 different recipes, all starting with a jar of sauce and some very simple tweaks that will make it new and different again.
I've never heard of a lot of these things. So the pan-seared mushroom quattratini with furikake pancrettato.
Right. So furikake is a mixture of seaweed and salt. Different versions have different combinations. It's Japanese seasoning mix, really. Pancrettato is seasoned toasted breadcrumbs. It's common in Italy to do seasoned toasted breadcrumbs on a range of dishes, but I'm adding more different flavors to those things. I was very conscious in putting this book together of like, where am I going to ask people to put in extra effort? Because I want it to be accessible. I'm a home cook. I'm not a professional chef. This book is for home cooks. And so I'm not going to ask you to make pasta from scratch. I'm going to tell you to use jarred sauce. If there's tortellini, we're going to use the store-bought tortellini. But I'm going to ask you to go out and get furikake if you don't already have it in your kitchen. It's pretty widely available now. And because I think that's the one ingredient that's going to take this dish to the next level.
I'm having kind of like I don't want to mock people who truly have post-traumatic stress, but I'm kind of having it now because I'm remembering how insistent you were on the way to do things and how excited you were about new ways to do things. I mean, this seems like what's compelling you.
But I think that's why you and I got along from the start, honestly, Robin, is that you were the kind of host who would come into the studio with a scrap of paper or a thing that you tore out of a newspaper of a story that you were excited about. And you would come in and be excited about something, and I would get excited, and we'd all be excited together. Like that's what makes our job fun, is when you get excited about it. And so I'm grateful that I've now been hosting the Sporkful podcast for 14 years, and I'm still love eating, and I'm still excited to learn new things and to try new things and to share what I learn with my listeners and my readers.
It's just so great. So do you think this is it? Or is there already something that you're thinking?
I mean, you know me, Rob, and there are always going to be new ideas. I think any creative person is always going to be driven to come up with new things. I don't know exactly what next steps will be. I really enjoyed doing this cookbook. It was a lot harder than I expected, but I learned a lot doing it. So I would love to have a crack at doing another one because I would love to be able to use what I learned in this one. But I'm taking a group of folks to Italy on a pasta tour this fall, so maybe get into more things like that. And who knows? I don't really believe in 5 or 10 year plans. I just like to run full speed ahead at the next thing that I'm excited about.
Where did I go wrong? I sit in the studio.
I think you're doing great, Robin.
Thank you. That's award-winning podcaster, cookbook writer, former intern, Dan Pashman. The new cookbook is Anything's Pastable. It's so much fun. Dan, thank you so much.
Thank you, Robin.
Support for NPR and the following message come from LinkedIn Ads. As a B2B marketer, you know how noisy the digital ad space can be. If your message isn't targeted to the right audience, it just disappears into the noise. By using LinkedIn Ads, you can reach professionals who are more likely to find your ad relevant. Target them by job title, industry, company, and more. Get a $100 credit on your next campaign at linkedin.com/book. Terms and conditions apply.
A parent making a child's soup has the warmth of 1,000 suns. It doesn't even matter what the exact type of soup it is, right? Joan Nathan happens to specialize in Jewish cooking, and her new cookbook, My Life in Recipes, uses those recipes to look back at her own family history and culture. And she talked to NPR's Ari Shapiro about it all, including the perfect consistency for matzo ball soup.
Joan Nathan has spent her life exploring Jewish culture through recipes. Across a dozen cookbooks, she's documented how food traditions evolved as Jews wandered all over the world through the centuries. Now in her 80s, her new book is her most personal work yet, excavating her own culinary history.
I've been more nervous about this book than any book.
Really?
Yeah. Well, it's sort of going into my life,
Yeah. It's a combination memoir and cookbook called My Life in Recipes. When I show up at her Washington, D.C. home, she's making a version of a dish that she's been eating more or less since birth. It's the first recipe in the book, chicken matzo ball soup.
Looks good. Looks like we might want to eat it.
Like every Jewish mother and grandmother I have ever met, she frets over whether the matzo balls will turn out the way she wants them to.
So my hers were al dente.
Mm-hmm. It's the big matzo ball debate. Light, fluffy, hard, dense. Every family does it their own way.
Right, exactly. And my mother-in-laws were very light. And she was straight from Poland. Don't you think about your parents or your grandparents when you're cooking, especially at holidays?
Absolutely, yeah. As with every immigration story, these family recipes evolved as people relocated, fleeing wars or seeking a better life for their kids.
I'd added ginger and nutmeg, which I knew was what my father's family would have used in Germany. Mm-hmm. Ginger nutmeg was a very common condiment combination in the 19th and 20th, early 20th century. So, and then I added fresh ginger.
In a variation that's fitting for spring, she chops up piles of herbs for the soup. Dill and parsley. Then a bowl of fresh peas goes clattering into the pot.
What kind of memories does it bring back for you to make matzo ball soup, to make chicken soup for a Jewish holiday?
It feels comfortable. It's the smell is, you just know that smell. Like my mother's brisket, I know. Like challah, I know. I love those smells. It knows that you're at home. There are people that care.
As Joan Nathan has written books about Jewish traditions in Africa, Asia, and the Americas, she has spent her life exploring in the kitchen, trying new dishes and recipes all year. But every spring for the Passover Seder, she likes to stick with a menu that follows her own family's traditions.
I think Passover tells us who we are. And it tells us this is my family sharing with other families. I get chills every year at Passover because I realize that it started in ancient Israel. I mean, it's in the Bible.
While the pot slowly simmers on the stove, Joan shows me some of the artifacts that she's uncovered from her family, including handwritten recipe books in German. One from her great-grandmother dates back to 1927.
And you can see...
Purple ink, gorgeous script.
Right.
And are these all recipes?
These are all recipes. Look
Wow.
at this. Here's a caramel pudding. Here's...
Looks like kuchen.
Yeah.
That's a dessert.
I mean, desserts were the big thing.
I've told you that Joan Nathan is a cookbook author, but she's actually much more than that. Over the course of her career, she's had a TV show, written regular columns for the New York Times, and won major food awards. This book is full of anecdotes from her world travels and stories of her collaborations with other food luminaries, from Alice Waters to Jose Andres.
Can you tell us something that you learned from one of them that you carry with you?
Julia,
Do I even need to tell you she means Julia Child?
I had her 90th birthday in this. She was sitting right here.
On this couch.
On this couch. I had a party for her. She's somebody who just kept living. And she said to me at 90, why should I quit if I'm doing what I like to do? And she made me realize a few things. Have people that are younger around you as you get older. You know, be positive. Don't talk about being uncomfortable or whatever. And also to write thank you notes to everybody.
This book is also a love story. Joan Nathan writes about her courtship and marriage of 45 years to her late husband, Alan Gerson. He died just before the pandemic. She told me writing this was almost a form of therapy.
I would just write, and I would include him in my life. You know, so it was a way of really making him part of my life. And I think it was really helpful to me. It really gave me strength. But it...
That's
Okay.
the soup.
We get up to check on the soup, and I notice a bookshelf in the kitchen. It's her entire literary career, neatly lined up over the counter.
It's striking to look at the bookshelf of everything you have done over the years, from the Jewish Holiday Cookbook, the Flavor of Jerusalem, the New American Cookbook, Foods of Israel Today, King Solomon's Table. It's really a history of Jewish cooking in America and around the world over decades. Your career on this one bookshelf.
I mean, I'm only realizing it now.
And how does it feel to realize it?
Well, I feel good about it. I mean, I realize I've done something.
Is this boiling over?
It's okay. It won't go over. Let's just put it down a little.
Your mother was named Pearl, and she was the longest serving volunteer at the Museum of the Rhode Island School of Design.
And so they...
Lived to 103?
She did.
Tell me, what did she attribute her long life to?
Well, I drink every day at 5 o'clock. Rye in the rocks in the winter, and gin and tonic in the summer, and a strong gin and tonic.
She was into seasonality before seasonality was fashionable.
But she also, you know, you learn so much from your mother and your father. But I really, because she lived so long, I learned that you enjoy every moment of every day.
You know, typically, if somebody published their 12th cookbook at age 80, I would say, well, we should probably talk to them because this might be their last cookbook. Most people retire in their 60s. Your mother lived to be 103, so I want to ask, what are you going to do for the next 20 years?
I don't think I'm going to write another cookbook. I'll write articles.
You think this is going to be your last cookbook?
I think this is it.
Beautiful.
It's time for lunch.
I think they're all done.
Joan Nathan ladles the matzo ball soup into bowls,
I got to get the challah.
pulls a fresh baked challah out of the oven, and quickly tosses together a green salad with pickled onions and a vinaigrette.
Here, one. So each of you, you're supposed to say a blessing, but should we say it?
Sure.
Baruch atah.
As we sit down to eat, of course, she worries aloud that maybe the matzo balls didn't turn out quite right.
This is so beautiful.
Well, I just think
Here you go.
they're going to be harder than usual. I'm sure of it.
And of course, they're perfect. Joan Nathan's new cookbook and memoir is called My Life in Recipes: Food, Family, and Memories.
And that's it for this week on NPR's Book of the Day. Let us know what you think. You can write to us at bookoftheday@npr.org. I'm Andrew Limbong. The podcast is produced by Isabella Gomez Sarmiento and Chloe Weiner and edited by Megan Sullivan and Sierra Crawford. Our founding editor is Petra Mayer. The show elements for this week were produced and edited by Andrew Craig, Matthew Sherman, Melissa Gray, Karen Zamora, Sarah Handel, Emiko Tamagawa, William Troop, and Mia Venkat. Beth Donovan is our managing editor. Thanks for listening.
This message is brought to you by NPR sponsor Lisa in collaboration with West Elm. Discover the new natural hybrid mattress, expertly crafted from natural latex and certified safe foams, designed with your health and the planet in mind. Visit leesa.com to learn more.
This message is brought to you by Warby Parker. Their glasses start at $95, including anti-reflective, scratch-resistant prescription lenses that block 100% of UV rays. Try 5 pairs of frames at home for free. Go to warbyparker.com/covered.